You think about people you really respect, maybe leaders or mentors, and then sometimes they fall short. It happens.
It really does. And that's kind of what we're diving into today, isn't it? Looking at a story from the Old Testament.
Exactly. We're heading into 2 Kings 15, focusing on King Azariah. Some people might know him as Uzziah.
Right, same person. And his story, well, it tells us something pretty crucial. Even when we mess up, even when respected figures stumble, God's purpose doesn't just grind to a halt.
That's the core idea, yeah. We've titled this, look, God reigns even when we fall short. And there's this one verse, 2 Kings 15.5. It's quite stark.
It really is. The Lord afflicted the king with leprosy until the day he died, and he lived in a separate house. Powerful image.
Definitely. So our aim today is to unpack this. What can this ancient account teach us, for our own lives when we face our own failings or see leaders struggle?
Well, first off, let's look at Azariah himself. The scripture actually says he generally did what was right in God's eyes. He wasn't a completely bad king.
Okay, so he had a track record of following God.
Yes, suggests a real commitment for the most part. But there's always a but, isn't there? He didn't remove the high places, these local shrines often used for idol worship.
So like a compromise. He was mostly faithful, but not completely.
Precisely. It might seem like a small detail to us now, maybe, but back then it represented a kind of divided loyalty, not full exclusive devotion to God.
And that lack of full devotion, that compromise, it had a serious consequence.
A huge one. God struck him with leprosy. He spent the rest of his life isolated. It shows that God's concern for holiness, it's not just about the really big, obvious sins.
Right. It gets into the details.
It does, and it makes you think about, well, our own lives. What about the hidden things? The pride, the jealousy, maybe bitterness or selfishness that others don't see.
Stuff we can kind of hide away.
Exactly. God sees that too. His standard is about the whole heart, not just the outward stuff.
Okay, so if God sees and judges all sin, what's the practical takeaway for you listening right now?
I think it's a call to be honest with ourselves regularly, to really examine our hearts. Are there areas where maybe our commitment is a bit shaky, divided?
And when we see those things,
act quickly. Don't just sit on it. Confess it. Turn away from it. It's about aiming for wholehearted obedience, not just settling for mostly good.
It's easy to settle for mostly good, though.
It really is. That's why accountability can be so helpful. Having trusted friends who can, ask the tough questions sometimes.
Okay, so that's the first big point. God takes sin seriously, even the hidden stuff. But Azariah's story doesn't end there, even with his pretty tragic end.
No, it doesn't. And this is where the hope comes in, really. Despite Azariah being sidelined by leprosy, the kingdom didn't just collapse.
Right. What happened next?
His son, Jotham, took over the reins. He stepped up, ruled, and God's larger story, his plan for his people, it just kept moving forward.
So one person's failure, even a king's failure, didn't derail God's ultimate purpose.
Exactly. That's the key insight here. Human failings, however significant, they don't stop God's kingdom. His promises hold true, regardless of our imperfections.
That's actually really encouraging because, let's be honest, it can be disheartening when you see leaders, whether in faith, politics, or anywhere, stumble badly.
It absolutely can, but this reminds us where our ultimate focus should be. It needs to be on Jesus, right? He's the only perfect leader, the only one who will never fail us.
So don't put all your faith in human leaders because they will disappoint eventually.
That's maybe a hard truth, but yeah, our faith can't be dependent on any human being perfect. Instead, we focus on our own faithfulness. Whatever God has called you to do, keep doing it faithfully.
Regardless of what others are doing around you.
Right. Put your trust in God's promises, which are solid, not in human performance, which is, well, often shaky. There's real comfort there. God's plan depends on his power, not on us being flawless.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. The main takeaways from this deep dive into Azariah's story.
Two big things, really. First, God is serious about sin, all of it. Holiness matters. But second, and just as important, his ultimate plan, his kingdom, it keeps going strong even when we humans fall short. Our failures don't have the final word.
So the bottom line is, God's kingdom never falls. Trust him and stay faithful yourself. That's powerful.
It really is.
And maybe here's something for you to think about after this. Reflect on a time when maybe someone you looked up to really let you down. How did you see God's work maybe in your own life or the wider world continue anyway? And how does this whole idea that God's kingdom is unstoppable change how you think about your own mistakes or the flaws you see in others? Something to chew on.